it's all about hustle and graft. The more we spoke with these people, the more we could understand their pain points. So we quantified that out. It was a €10,000 problem.
On this week's episode of the podcast, I'm joined by Ryan O'Neill, the CEO of LegitFit.
One of 3 founders to now a team of 25. So there's a lot of management learnings.
We talk all things entrepreneurship, taking risk, and building a successful business.
Don't be set in what you think is right and what the market needs. Look at the data, look at the numbers and figure out, is this actually a way that you can scale a business?
Why every entrepreneur needs to learn how to sell.
We were knocking on doors, and it's important to kind of go through that experience. It makes you better at selling, adds a lot to you, and just builds grit, which you need for running a business.
Why failing fast is important.
You learn a lot more from the failures than you do the wins, but it's just making sure that you embrace that. What did we learn here? How could we do better next time? What would you change?
And how to improve the culture in your business.
Everyone we bring in loves this industry. Don't hire followers, hire builders. So like a builder is someone who will...
Let's jump into the episode. Ryan, welcome to the FMA podcast. You're from LegitFit. Why should a fitness business owner listen to this podcast?
So I think ideally I'd like to kind of talk a bit about entrepreneurship, leadership. I've gone from, I suppose, being one of 3 founders to now a team of 25. So there's a lot of management learnings that have come along the way, a lot of scaling issues and challenges to overcome. And I think, we're talking to gym owners, businesses every day, and we've learned a huge amount from that customer base, whether it's like being in person with them or just over virtual calls. And yeah, I'd like to kind of share some of that knowledge as well. I think it'd be quite useful for people.
It will massively impact the listeners. For anyone that doesn't know, what is LegitFit?
So LegitFit is at its kind of most basic, it's a booking and payment system, right? But we're really kind of focused on like the customer experience side of things. So what started as booking with payments has now got into some like automations around emails, some client tagging things. Essentially, we just want to kind of give you back time so that you can focus on like growing the business, cultivating the community that you have, and so in some cases, just other things outside work, which are also quite important.
Just to give context, you've rapidly grown as a business. And what's your next sort of growth milestone that you're aiming for in terms of servicing the fitness industry? Yeah,
so I think we now power 1 in 4 gyms in Ireland, which is a pretty cool stat, where over the last kind of 2 years, we've been growing rapidly in the UK. We've doubled growth last year. And I think like a lot of our kind of goals that we set out are usually revenue based, but like from a industry impact perspective, like we still have a lot to scale into the UK. I think we're eyeing up other markets for sure. Like our next big customer milestone would be 5,000, which would be pretty cool.
It's fair to say you have a lot of data, you have a lot of conversations with people in the industry, and you know a lot of things. And this is 100% why people should stick and listen to this whole podcast, because we're going to go deep on entrepreneurship, what it actually takes to build a business to significant size, leadership, team, some of the challenges that you've had, and the learnings and data that you see every single day from your customers that you can then tell everyone on the podcast, and they can make a few tweaks here and there and boost their revenue, boost their sales.
Exactly. And it's all like, I know it's slightly different target audience, but like a lot of the challenges, a lot of the problems are quite similar in SaaS versus fitness. And you even kind of see, some things around like SaaS metrics are now kind of creeping into fitness, around LTV, around CAC, around all these other things that I think will be very transferable.
Let's go back. How did the business start? What was your involvement? How did you get into the fitness industry?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family business, quite a large family. We used to live above a shop, basically. So that was kind of my first exposure to entrepreneurship. I always often say our family dinners was always shop talk. It was always like, what's going on? So
what was you selling in the shop?
So it was like there was sandwiches, cakes, like it was a kind of general grocery store as well as like the bakery element. So I literally grew up in that. doing sales over the counter, getting people to buy 2 scones instead of 1 scone. But yeah, I think that was like my first exposure, and it was almost like an education in itself that I'm lucky to have had. I decided to kind of go down a slightly different route than all my family who were going into business, and I don't know that I have this mad idea of being a scientist back in the day. And went to university, did pharmaceutical chemistry, went out working in the industry for about 1.5 years. But my kind of introduction to fitness was I used to play sports. I was playing football, and basically I was the somewhat overweight goalkeeper, let's say. And I just wanted to kind of make a change in my life. I got obsessed about the gym. I was going like 7 days a week. Yeah, and I just really loved it, and I loved the kind of progress that I felt from it. And I think when I was in that pharma job that I wasn't too satisfied with.
So you was at uni and then you went to a pharmaceutical company?
Yeah. So I was in labs. I was doing like testing, which, you know, that does help with building a business because you learn the scientific method and going through all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I wanted to do something in fitness. I was doing a personal trainer course on the weekends, and then I was doing a Start Your Own Business course. And I didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but I pitched 2 of my friends that I grew up with on this kind of concept that I didn't really know what it was at that stage. But basically, one I used to actually play soccer with, I was in a spin class, and I pitched him that idea in the spin class after, because I knew he was working in the fitness industry. And then the other, I went to primary school with him, and he was working in SurveyMonkey at the time.
Which is a software solution for...
So he was working... I think it was international growth for SurveyMonkey. So he was an engineer, like pure engineer, like one of these guys who was in a dark room when he was 13, jailbreaking iPhones and that kind of stuff, and just built a really amazing career. And I basically cornered him one day when he came back to Cork, and I said, do you want to go to the gym? Do you want to go to the sauna? And kind of pitched him the idea in the sauna. And that's kind of like how it initially started.
Let's just quickly talk about your own fitness journey, because you showed me some incredible pictures of you. What did you achieve?
The lads are going to give me stick for that now. So yeah, basically I was probably, I didn't actually weigh myself at the start. I was kind of that much concerned about what I would say on the scales. I was probably around 125 kilos when I was about 18. And there was just this kind of switch moment where I was like, okay, I'm not going to I need to change my ways. And I got down to, I think it was 92, 93 kilos, probably doing all the wrong fad diets to get to that. And then I just started kind of building up from that point. So I got to around like 110, like quite somewhat lean, but like quite muscly, I would say.
And then what was the gap in the market that you saw? What was the spark? What drove you to think, you know what, I think I can create a platform to help people?
Yeah, so I think there was a really interesting business learning here that again is transferable to the fitness industry, which was when we initially had the idea around LegitFit, it was actually the Airbnb of fitness was the concept, and we went out pitching that idea to everybody. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing, and people. You're talking to your friends, you're talking to, it's a little bit of an Irish thing as well, where people they won't say that's a bad idea. They'll encourage you and say, yeah, it sounds great. And even when we were talking to gym owners, they were like, yeah, sounds great.
So the idea was what PTs or gyms would upload a profile to the platform.
Exactly.
And consumers could find them.
Consumers could find
them.
And yeah. Exactly. So that was kind of the initial concept.
How pleased are you that you didn't go down that route?
It would have cost us about 10 million to probably get any bit of traction in Ireland. So I think that mightn't have worked, right?
How quickly did you fail at that? So you said you were asking friends and consumers and people, and they were saying yes. They were pleasing you, saying, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. But how quickly did you realize that was not a good idea?
Yeah, I think so we were pushed to go out and keep talking to gym owners, talking to our potential market. And someone said to me, like, it was the mom test, which is, if you ask your mom, how do you look? It's like, oh, you're great, you're lovely, you're this, you're that. and in like what we decided to do was, I think we called it the car boot test, which was like we would go in and say, okay, we have this Airbnb of fitness. What do you think? Great. They would say, as they always have, and then we say, okay, do you have your card details? I'm ready to sign you up. €50 a month was kind of just the number we pulled, basically, and then you'd find out the real answers. I'd have to see this, I'd have to see that. And what we realized then very quickly, and I'm glad we kind of went through that, was that like there wasn't really a market need. It wasn't a big enough pain point that we were solving with that. And I was actually doing a master's at the same time that I was starting LegitFit. It was kind of my backup, I would say, in management and marketing. And there was one class on research and development and how to do it and how to not do it. I did everything under the how to not do it category possible. I told people what we were building. I said what it would look like. And what we should have really done is like just gone into the gym owner and this is what we ended up doing in the end, was saying, if you could build something in the morning, what does that do for you? And flipping that question on its head opened our eyes to like all the problems, all the challenges, and we use different like research techniques, like like a third person. So like you might ask a gym owner, and again gyms might ask clients what are their challenges, and clients will say, oh, I don't really have major challenges. But if you ask someone, what do you think people your age are struggling with, or your demographic are struggling with, they'll like ream out
riff phrases. You flip the question.
Exactly. Yeah, because we're somewhat vulnerable in a way, and we don't want to kind of say our weaknesses or challenges, that kind of stuff. We're happy to talk through a third person, but it's only coming from our own worldview.
And what do you think the key takeaway here is for the listener, fitness professional, fitness business owner?
I think it's an element of like, don't be set in your like what you think is right and what the market needs, and I suppose like kind of be curious about what potential there is, and stay silent as much as possible, so that people are uncomfortable with silences, so they'll keep talking, and you can learn a huge amount from people that way. So if it's like if you're a gym owner, you might be thinking, oh, I'm gonna do cryo infrared, I'm gonna do a Hyrox class, I'm gonna do this, that, and the other. But again, is that what is kind of the trendy in the industry, or is that actually what your customers need? And if you maybe kind of dove into that a little bit further about like, what would you add to this gym in the morning, and collected the data from that perspective, you probably learn a load of things that you didn't know, or that wasn't so trendy in the industry. Rather
than going off emotion, like, oh, I need to add in this specific licensed branded class, or I need to add in this recovery element suite, because emotionally you're tied to it, or you want to experience it because you're building a business based off of your needs and wants, rather than asking the consumer, who ultimately is paying.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they'll validate it, right? Like, at the end of the day, you don't have a business without the customers. And you need to kind of, you need to just really deeply understand their wants, their needs, desires.
Yep. Sometimes, though, a fitness business owner can listen too much to their customers. So Henry Ford created the Ford motor car. He said famously, if he had asked people what they had wanted, they would want a faster horse. And he didn't listen to that, and he went and created the car. So what would you say to the fitness business owner that gets feedback from their clients, and sometimes it's wrong feedback and they know it's wrong?
Yeah. I think
because at LegitFit, you must get feedback from your current subscribers right now on a few elements that they feel that they need, but you're coming from a higher top of the mountain, looking over all of these businesses, and it's not what they need.
Yeah. I think like there's a couple of ways of looking at this, right? So there's like let's say you have 100 clients, and 50 of them are saying like from a software perspective, we need this feature, right? The way we need to kind of look at that is, we look at from a data perspective in the sense of like, will people leave us because they don't have this feature? Will it open up more opportunities for us with the other 50 that don't need it? Will it open up more opportunities for us down the road with different customer types, that kind of stuff? So we really want to like take that high level view of like it's not just the current cohort.
I think what we see from our side of the fence is a fitness business owner will get feedback from one person.
Yeah.
And then they'll use the terminology, everyone thinks I should do this. And it's like, well, hang on a second. Like, how many people have you actually talked to, surveyed, had in-depth conversations with, gone out of the gym environment or class environment and actually had a coffee and sat down, made them fill in a form, provide actual feedback rather than just going off one person's emotional sort of feedback and then blanket targeting like everyone when you know deep down you've just spoken to one person who's giving you the feedback.
Yeah, I think like the important thing that we do is we collect it all first and foremost. Like everyone needs to be heard. And I think it's important because you need to start building this database on the feedback, because it might be one person today, it might be one person in 2 weeks' time that was talking to a different coach or a different team member or something like that, and it might continue to build that way. I think you need to kind of record that element, and then I think it's as simple as looking at it from the sense of revenue. Like,
is it producing revenue, this decision? Or?
Yeah. So if a customer, and we've ran a lot of tests like this, where like if a customer says, "Oh, I need this," it's a simple question. Let's say I need nutritional. Like everyone wants nutritional programming from me. It's like, okay, well, break down what does that work look like for you? What's the time? What kind of margins can you make it off? And then ask that one person, okay, are you going to pay $1,000 a month for this? Are you ready to do that now? And do that kind of car boot test where it's like, do you have your card
money
details?
Talks. Yeah,
exactly. It shows how serious it is and how much of a need it is as opposed to a want, essentially.
And we'll keep going in a second on this sort of how you built the business up, but something you just said I really want to touch upon, and I might forget to mention it later on down the line. So feedback, you said it's crucial. How can a fitness business owner listening to this get feedback for their product, their service, their onboarding, the exiting of a client, like every element? So the question is, how do you get feedback at what touch points of the journey, and then how can our listeners integrate that into their business?
Yeah, so we have people that come in as leads, essentially. We're trying to book demos with them to show them the product, to understand about their business, where we can help them. If they go to close lost, we mark that, we take feedback from them, we try to understand that. That essentially fills this revenue opportunity bucket for us.
If we just pause there, can you just explain close lost?
Close lost, so they did a demo of the platform. It wasn't the right fit for them. It might be there was one feature that they were looking for that didn't solve the problem or something like that.
I think the takeaway for me there is having that pipeline of close lost. Do our listeners have a pipeline in their system where they can drag and drop people and say, okay, these 10 people I spoke to, but I lost the sale because for whatever reason they didn't join? And the more a fitness business owner can get that dashboard and have that data, the better decisions they can make. And that's what you just explaining you're doing. Exactly.
And it's not hard to do this. Like you set it up. It'll take you maybe an hour to set it up. It takes 30 seconds to do every time there's a disqualified person or a closed lost person. But the power of it in 6 months, 12 months, 24 months is like invaluable. Like and they're literally people you can remarket to because if you've built up a case to build X or to add nutrition or to do whatever, you now have this whole pipeline of leads that are marked that we're looking for nutrition that you can go back to and say, we've listened, we've heard, and now we're introducing this.
Because a listener to this podcast, they might have like 10 people close lost because they said it's price. Another 10 people said logistics of, let's say, getting there, or they didn't really understand it, and then suddenly you can look at all of these factors and then look to change things in how you pitch it, how you sell it, how you market it, and so on.
Exactly. And like you might find out, let's say you're doing SGPT and maybe it's the price is the issue. And it's like you've 100, 200 people that said that in the last year. Is there a case for a large group here? Probably. And you don't know without the data. And, there are all these, like it's happening every day, these small things, but they build up over time. And I think the capturing of the information is so key.
Let's go back to the continuation of scaling the business. So you went out to the market, asked for feedback, kept digging. And then when did you decide to shut that door and open another door and build what you have today?
So I think it came down to, we did like qualitative research and quantitative. So qualitative, we were knocking on doors. We shout out to all the gym doors in Cork that we knocked on twice. The first time with the first idea and the second time when we said forget about that first idea, and helped us essentially build a product. And we found that like on average, people who weren't using a system were spending, and these were small businesses. So for like even the medium size, like 100, 200 member gyms, this is even more. But these small businesses were spending about 4 hours per week on admin.
Using what, like Google Sheets or just like manual billing? Like
exactly. So like they might be using Calendly with Stripe and something else, just things that weren't really fit for purpose. Cash, definitely. And then I think, so there was like the 4 hours, and then I think the average was 3 cancellations per week, right? So we quantified that out. If you could throw on 4 extra classes with the average info that they were telling us, plus the 3 cancellations, if you cut that down, it was a €10,000 problem. And
meaning like the gym owner's time to communicate back and forth with the 3 people a week that are cancelling, and
to reschedule maybe the lost revenue from that opportunity. Just the fact that they get more time back to grow the business as opposed to doing the operational bits and pieces. I think it seemed like a big problem where we could basically just, say like €50 for 10,000, €50 a month, for €10,000 a year. It's a no brainer. So I think that was the point where we had like our first sign up, but then we also obviously had to understand about who else is in the market. We're not the only people who came up with this magical epiphany. And we basically just spent a huge amount of time with people who are using other solutions out there. And instead of saying, what would you build in the morning? It was, if you could do one thing, or if you could change one thing about this software, what would it be? And that's where the kind of second phase of learning came. And it was often about, they were using like, no names of course, but they're using these solutions that had feature bloat, right? They've been around since 2000, like early noughties, late noughties, and they were building feature upon feature upon feature for all different markets. And basically it just became a job in itself that
to understand it as a business owner trying to use that platform.
Exactly. And like they'd have to sit down and relearn, how do I do this simple task?
Because maybe that software also helps hair salons or
exactly
swimming pools or tanning shops. Or,
exactly. And then of course they needed support, and the support thing was lacking as well. So when we went to market, what we were super conscious about is that we don't want to be that bloated solution that does everything for everyone, and we want to kind of deliver happiness to the customers. We want to make sure that like there's a genuine I suppose connection with the business, as opposed to this big corporate
logo.
Yeah, exactly.
So the 3 of you are grinding. You're juggling the masters. Are the other 2 supplementing an income, or how are you generating revenue to eat?
Yeah, so we, I was still doing a little bit of bakery work in the shop, and Ian was still working in the gym that he was working in, and Gerard was, so we were all kind of like somewhat part-time on it, but it was essentially full time. When I say part time, you're.
How long ago was this?
So this was 2018. 2018.
And a big influence on everyone's lives is their closest, like family, loved ones, friends. And sometimes those closest to you have your best interests at heart, and they love you, they want you to succeed, but maybe they don't support you, or maybe they do support you. So how did that play a role in sort of growing and scaling the company?
Yeah, I think when we look at us like internally, we're a good, like the Holy Trinity somewhat. So like we were there, and I think that was really important for us to have like co-founders, to be there when times were good, but more so when times were bad, and that you had that kind of shoulder to lean on. But then I think like family, as I said, I grew up in a family business, so it was almost like a natural thing.
They didn't know anything different.
Exactly. So it was just like it was the norm, and I felt it was the norm as well.
Well, I guess someone who's dating or married to a spouse, or in a family where they've just had jobs, being an entrepreneur is not the normality. So for them, it's even riskier. Like, why would you do that? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then they would influence that person's decision making, and potentially just pull them back to be in that safe area. But what I'm gathering from this is you saw firsthand from your family risk every year in building that business. So you just didn't know any better, and just that was the path. Yeah,
but I kind of I kind of think as well, and I think it was something we spoke about before, about like you are the product of the 5 people you hang around with. And I had 5 older sisters, so I'm the product of them in some way. But I think I was also like seeking out different communities to kind of just be a sponge to those. So I was attending the events for startups. I was going to the co-working spaces. I was joining like early incubator programs. Like I just put myself as much out there as possible to surround myself by those people, because they're the people that I wanted to. I felt I would get growth from, and
get ideas,
yeah,
inspiration, tips for innovation.
Yeah.
Again, what I see sometimes is fitness business owners, they stay in that box, and for whatever reason, they tell themselves that they're busy, and they don't travel, they don't go connect, they don't have those conversations with people inside and outside their industry. They don't learn. So then their growth is limited and sometimes stagnates, and most of the time goes backwards, because they're not willing to be connected and be vulnerable, ask for help, and that's ultimately what you did.
Yeah, and I think like I think there's always that you can't see ROI directly from it. So I'll spend maybe an hour doing sales calls instead of this, but like there's so much intangibles to these. Like every time I go to an FMA event, like you see the collaboration. It's a little bit of a therapy session as well, and that gives you almost kind of I suppose like that kind of pat in the back that other people are having these same challenges, but also you get those ideas from other people, and you can kind of 2 heads are better than one, but an FMA event 200 heads are definitely better than one. So I think getting that exposure is so key to growth. Just and it could be like, again, it might be a fitness event, it might be not related to fitness, but putting yourself in those seeing different perspectives from different industries. Because as I said, like even in SaaS, what we do, software as a service, there's some very relevant things between that and the fitness industry. So you can just learn from all different walks of life.
Way back then, what do you think you were pulling hour wise? How many hours a day and weekends? Were you having any days off?
Well, it was definitely, I remember because I was doing the masters and the business and the incubator at the same time.
Just for everyone who's not clear, what is an incubator?
An incubator is like when you have a startup idea, sometimes there's funding that comes with it or different things like that. I think there was like 5K of funding that came with this incubator, and then they would do workshops with you, and you could learn from a sales professional, you could learn from a marketing professional, and it was just to kind of flesh out the business a bit more and the idea a bit more. And
so from the government of Ireland, you was enrolled in this?
It was actually from the university.
Okay.
And I kind of worked my way into being able to do the masters and this incubator, and essentially I did a lot of my masters, like my thesis and all that, on the business itself. So I used to go into college at around 7 a.m. And then I would go down to the incubator until about 9 or 10. I'd do classes during the day, and then I'd go back down to the incubator until about 7, 8 at night-ish. But then you go home and you're looking, you're just
ideas.
You're just so eager. You're looking at what's going on in the industry. You're looking at competitors' pages. You're trying to figure out, how did they do this? How did they do that? It's just, it doesn't seem like work, right? Because you're just so passionate about it and you really want to make something.
You're in the flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was driving you back then to succeed? Because you could have easily just slotted into the family business. I know a few of your sisters are successful in business in other industries. You could have maybe gone down that route and been part of their businesses. What drove you to have that vision? So what I really want the listeners to understand is the importance of vision, and then the drive to step out your comfort zone, to go knocking on doors, to hustle, to actually do the work to fulfill the vision that you've created in your head. So back in 2018, you're at uni, you're juggling the masters, you're baking some cakes, you've got this idea, you're in the incubator, you're working out, because you said you was in the best shape of your life back then. So what was the greater vision?
So I think from growing up, I saw my parents have massive impact on a community, and I just thought that was something really admirable and something that I wanted to replicate. But of course, you always want to do it bigger and better, and take the baton and go further with things. So I think that's something that's kind of driven me, and then like there's a element of competitiveness, of course, in our family. So I think that drove me as well. But I think at the end of the day, like, it's a bit cheesy, but look, when you're on your deathbed, looking back and how you lived your life and what impact that you had, I think that I just wanted to I wanted to be able to go to London and just book in on LegitFit and just meet people and hear their stories and how they started and that kind of stuff. I wanted to go to New York. I wanted to do these different things. That's the kind of thing that really resonated with me, because I went down that corporate route. I saw, and not that everybody was like this, but I think it was just my experience. I saw people who were, it's grand. How's life? It's grand. They don't want to talk about work. They don't want to, I just didn't want to be kind of in that. I wanted to follow the passion side of things. I think my mum always said, when it came to kind of money, she was just like, follow your passion. The money will follow. Now, obviously you have to have the acumen and you have to grow and all that kind of stuff. But I think like that core concept of following the passion, and the love for fitness and some of that kind of mixture with small business, because my family were a small business, like the businesses that, like the gyms, the studios that we work with now, they're getting bigger and bigger scale, but like they're all these kind of I think the Americans call it mom and pops essentially. But I think what we're doing in LegitFit can genuinely change their lives, and I get a lot of satisfaction for that, because you're kind of seeing your own parents and would have loved someone to help them do that as well.
The takeaway for me is, don't chase the money. Have that vision that's fueled by that passion, and then you'll make the impact and you'll get the money.
Yeah.
So let's go back. When was like the first breakthrough, and when did you start generating the first 10, 15, 20 clients?
Yeah, so we literally are just back from hackathon where one of my co-founders, Garrod, actually made a very nice slide deck. And
What is a hackathon?
A hackathon. So when we had no money in LegitFit, we had to come up with very creative ways in order to get the product built into market. So we ended up basically renting an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere, and we had like Garrod and Garrod's network. And again, this goes back to the networking piece of attending events and the value you can find. We were in a Bank of Ireland co-working space, and I met the community manager there. And when I posted out to people, do they know any engineers? She messaged me back, and she introduced me to two people that ended up coming to the hackathon.
So you rented this random Airbnb in the middle of Ireland.
Yeah.
And these two engineers, just explain again, break this down. What is an engineer?
So an engineer is like a software developer, but not a kind of software developer that like building websites. They're more kind of much more technical than that. So we needed that to get the product to market. And
did you have those skill sets?
I tried. I definitely tried because I think I was in at the very start. I was a bit impatient and naive, and I kind of looked at product being almost like a copy and paste thing. You copy and paste it, and then you're done. And I taught myself to code on the weekends. I built a Pokédex, which was my finest engineering moment. But I just realized how long it actually took, and just the intricacies of it. So I parked that and said, that's, yeah.
Well, I think takeaway 3 for me is don't try and be Superman, Superwoman and do everything yourself. Look to hire people that are better than you at certain roles and bring them in and share the vision of what's possible. And then they'll naturally buy into it, or maybe not. And then they join that journey with you. And I guess that's what happened.
Yeah, like my strengths wasn't in that. It was in talking to people and just selling the vision piece. So I focused on that. And then we got, a team of 6 up to this hackathon. We did 5 more of those events. They cost us maybe £350, something like that per event. And then we actually got the product to market. That was probably in the space of like 18 months. So it took like quite a bit of time. And then I think our first client was actually someone who used to deliver into my family's shop. And yeah, he came on board, and we just kept hustling, kept knocking on doors.
When you say hackathon and Airbnb, all I visualize is from that social media film, when Facebook, the Mark Zuckerberg film, when he's in I think it's an Airbnb in LA, and he's got all his friends trying to code Facebook. That's what I envision.
That's pretty much it. And then there was myself and Ian, who didn't have an ounce of code in us, just making sure that these guys were fueled on coffee and were bringing the energy and making their lunch. So definitely the family business side helped me there with catering. Yeah.
So officially, when did LegitFit launch?
It was March 2019.
And then from a marketing standpoint, let's just jam on that. What was your strategy?
Yeah, so we didn't have a huge amount of money. So our marketing was essentially like cold calling and getting out and about as much as possible. So like our biggest cost was our time, which at the time we weren't paying ourselves, so it was nothing. So we would go out and we'd knock on doors, we'd do like flyer drops, like really traditional methods. And, we got a bit more savvy kind of over time, but like that was kind of like just being where our audience was as well. Instagram, we started featuring, we started reaching out to gyms and personal trainers and asking them if they'd like to be featured, which worked quite well. We did 30 pros in 30 days, that kind of stuff. The content's still there. It's like if you scroll way down in the feed. But like that was kind of on me as well, until we could kind of get to a point where we could bring in some more people.
One element I've missed is, was this completely self-funded? You talked about the 5,000 grant from the incubator. How did you grow the business? Yeah,
so I'd say until we got to maybe 5,000, maybe a bit earlier, maybe €1,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. It was funded by as many government grants as we could find. I was filling out literally every application form under the sun. But then we got family investment, and that like brought us to a certain point. And then I think it was 2021 where we did a round, like a pre-seed round of funding where we had some more family members. We had, I think, 13 of our customers actually invest, which was like, again, not that it was a shot in the dark, but it was just thinking outside the box and being like what are the ways that we can grow, or gain capital. So we just put it out there to our kind of customer base. It was relatively small at that stage. And they came on board as investors. And then we had more government supports that we kind of got accepted for and that kind of stuff.
Coming from a standpoint of, I'm a beginner to business, very naive, why would you go down that route? If I'm a complete beginner, please explain.
So I think software is expensive, and to actually get the product to market takes a lot of time. So it's a lot of like front loading investment. Like you see some of these massive software companies making losses still like 20 years in because they're obsessed about growth and that kind of stuff. So I think for us, for it to be, I don't think it wasn't something that was going to be immediately sustainable, and our price point was at a certain point as well that just it would take too much. We could have done it, but it could have taken us 2 or 3 years, and we decided to kind of look down the fundraising route because look, we could build a product faster, acquire more customers, drive company value that way. I think, yeah, like there's no like right or wrong way. Like you've massive bootstrapping is when you don't raise capital. I think MailChimp might have been bootstrapped, but yeah, we just kind of decided to kind of take that because we wanted to kind of grow faster, make the impact faster.
So what could our listeners take away from this segment? First thing I'd like you to talk about is the grants. Where could one of our listeners, if they're startup mode, find grants? How do they go about obtaining this money? And is it for just software?
No, it's not. There's loads of different business supports and business grants out there. I'm more kind of accustomed to the ones in Ireland, but like a lot of governments want to increase employment. Like it's one of their core objectives, and they do that by supporting more businesses and more small businesses. I can't remember the statistic, but it's like small businesses are the majority of a lot of countries. So I would literally Google like grants and just like research it as much as possible. Like we went to a thing called the local enterprise office where they had grants for it wasn't even software startups, it was just small business grants. And they're still like a lot of them are still there today, and they're trying to provide more support. So like one example is they'll fund 50 or 60% of your website build if you apply for it. And it's I remember it was 90% at one stage. So like there's free money out there, and it's definitely a good way to go down.
So to repeat, like most governments of countries, they know that the infrastructure of that is built on small businesses, because small businesses then employ 5, 10, 15, 20 people. There's all taxes, there's jobs created. So they're willing to loan money out to help entrepreneurs, business owners get that head start to acquire the machinery or the people to build the actual or equipment to build the business. Yeah,
and there's even like it doesn't have to be government. There's some private companies that do that as well. Like again, I'm looking at some, let's say a gym that has one location right now, and they're looking for a second location. There's a lot of new capital available to these types of businesses that are like, a Stripe launch, Stripe Capital. There's literally
just talk about that.
Yeah, so basically, they've looked at obviously the banking industry and how they do loans, and because Stripe is processing payments, they can see like if you're working with Stripe, your historical data from a payments perspective. So they have a lot more insight into the business and loads of other businesses. So they're kind of not as risk averse than the banks would be. And they can basically like deploy loans now to businesses that are paid back in monthly repayments and that kind of stuff.
So let's imagine you've got facility number one consistently for 4 years, hitting 30,000 a month. Stripe can see that. They know you don't default on payment. You don't have any cards being blocked or customers claiming fraud or anything like that. You're in good standing. Then potentially they'll loan you money or some money to put towards whatever business venture you. Could be an upgrading kit. It could be location number 2. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah. What would you say are the downsides of getting investment?
I think the downsides, like you, it depends on the type of investment. But if it's some of the grant aid, I say it's free money because they're not taking equity and that kind of stuff. But in other situations, they're going to be getting some return, so it dilutes you. But I think like there's also the kind of mindset of like 100% of nothing is still nothing. So like I think if like you feel it's like a interesting kind of path to go down and you feel like you're comfortable with your numbers and it's just a case of capital as being the restriction on you, I think that's always definitely worth looking at. I think I'd be careful as well of like who you take money off.
Let's jam on that because a lot of fitness professionals will take money off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wealthy clients or family members, and then sometimes it goes wrong.
Yeah, and it could go wrong in a lot of different ways. Like it could go wrong in the sense of them wanting to run the show. Like maybe they're that one client we were speaking about earlier where they had a certain need and they feel like they've more influence over the situation because they've put in a couple of thousand. And I think it comes back to setting the expectations at the start. What's the worst case scenario here? Are they comfortable with losing their money? And like, I think, do they understand that, look, they're putting in this money for X return? Is that like all laid out on the table from the very get go? And do you really like trust this person as well? I think often you can kind of see people, they see the element of money and it's like, that's great, that's exactly what I need. But there's a lot more due diligence and understanding of each other that you need to kind of have, and you need to understand their expectations of the relationship, but they need to understand your expectations of the relationship as well.
The pros and cons to investment, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
All comes down to your personal wants, desires.
Yeah, exactly.
And what you're actually building.
Yeah. And like, what kind of you're comfortable with.
Yep. Let's go back to marketing. So you definitely hustled in the early days to obtain those clients. Tell me more. What else did you do?
So I actually moved myself from Cork to Dublin to actually do the door knocking. I was there for 9 months. I was living with a 40-year-old old woman in a small room, and I was basically just on the road most of the time. And then we were just kind of knocking there. Then we were on all like threads or groups on Facebook, just kind of keeping a pulse on the industry, trying to understand things. We got better, obviously, at the email marketing side of things. We started doing like targeted campaigns, our version of it, which was we would open up Google Maps and I would say to Ian, you're on County Cork today, I'm going to go on County Dublin. And we would just split it up like that, and we would cold call, try to set up meetings. It was just a lot of
time-consuming activities,
hugely
hustling, but it got you to a certain level, right?
Yeah.
What's the takeaway here for our listeners?
I think with the kind of early stage marketing, it's definitely fine to get you to a certain point. And it's important to kind of, to kind of go through that experience. It makes you better in things as well. It makes you better at selling. It makes you better with being comfortable with uncomfortable. It adds a lot to you and just builds grit, which you need for running a business. But I think there's a point of I suppose, you kind of just need to focus on other aspects and build out other channels and not be dependent. Like if you're, like we were selling at the time €50 software, and the economics just didn't work out for doing door knocking. So we needed to find different methods. And that was just, again, a learning that we went through and something that was necessary. So I think the takeaway is like, do what's necessary, but then look at the data, look at the numbers and figure out, is this actually a way that you can scale a business, whether that's to, 5,000, 1,000, 150, like can you get to 50 doing that? And then look at other avenues.
You must have faced a lot of rejection. Can you tell me a few scenarios?
Yeah. No, for sure. Some kind rejection, some not so kind rejection. I think with the cold calls, it was obviously much easier for someone to hang up the phone than to tell you, like, get out of my gym. It did happen. But I think you were just kind of, again, going through these like the course, the incubator thing. You learned that this is just part of the process, and it's like one no closer to a yes, and you just kind of had to kind of go through that process. But yeah, I remember there was one gym I went into, and I called up to the desk. They said the manager was inside. He'd be with me in 15 minutes, and then 15 minutes turned into about an hour. And then I kind of just went in and I kind of said, I'm going to pop off there. And he just basically goes like, yeah, I won't explain exactly, but it was explicit.
A lot of fitness business owners, they will build something and hope people will just come and turn up. And you could have easily done that. You could have spent all of this money, time, resources building LegitFit platform, and then not gone out of your comfort zone and done these shoestring marketing tactics, old school, door-to-door, cold calling, and so on. So my question is, you did what was necessary to get those first 10, 20, 30 clients onto LegitFit. And a lot of fitness business owners, they're of the mentality of, I'll build it, people will just turn up. I don't want to call leads that have opted in their data, name, email, phone number, because that's cold calling, when it's totally not cold calling. They've requested more information. So what would you say to that fitness business owner who is willing to not step out of their comfort zone, is not willing to do the hard work, roll up their sleeves? They're of the mentality, oh, the type of client that I want to attract will naturally want to work out. They don't need to be sold to. They don't need to be convinced that I'm the best solution.
Yeah, I think like part of our cold calling and that kind of stuff was validation, again, for what we're doing, and also like building the product. Like, we were calling in so early days to people that we didn't even have payments, and
to take payment if they
exactly.
Yeah,
we just had bookings. And the more we spoke with these people, the more we could understand their pain points, and the more we could actually build a product that was actually necessary for them. So it was like not instant ROI, but it was going to be like good value for us either way, right? And I think like with I wish we had those warm, like we call them warm leads inbound. Like that's it's not outbound, it's not cold calling. They've opted in. They're interested in some way. Like we were doing something where they did not opt in for us to turn up to their door.
So a fitness business is extremely hard to get that data, because like how do you get phone numbers of a consumer? It's extremely, you can buy lists, but
yeah,
GDPR rules probably don't even allow that now.
Yeah,
but if you're saying B2B, it's much easier to get that data to make those calls. So if you're a physical bricks and mortar business, online coach, like if someone's given you data, that's not cold calling.
No.
That's just calling someone who's raised their hand and said, yes, I'm semi-warm.
Yeah.
I just want to find out more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, again, it's kind of like, if you're not willing to do the hustle and graft, you're in the wrong business in the first place.
Or maybe you shouldn't be an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Business owner.
Yeah. Because it's all about hustle and graft, but it's just different levels, right? Like it starts off as like hustle and graft in the cold calling, but then it's hustle and graft in the operational piece, in the running the team piece. It's always hustle and graft every step of the journey. But yeah, so if you and also you got to look at it from the perspective of, if you haven't done this job, you don't know. If you're thinking about hiring someone in, you need to get some taste for it to be able to know if they're good or not. And you need to kind of be able to empathize with them from that perspective as well. And also if you're leading, like sometimes you just need to step into some roles where if you see a problem in the gym or in the business, and you're like at the end of the day, you're the problem solver of the business, right? And you're there to kind of help and coach the team. So if I see a problem in one part of the business, I just need to get more exposure to that so I can understand it better, so I can help solve that problem or give a different perspective of it. And if you're, again, going back to the cold calling, if you're not willing to do some cold calling and not learn from it, like you're not going to be able to coach someone to do it. And I think at different times, I think the most inspirational leaders in kind of whatever market, they're the people who are willing to get their hands dirty and when it's necessary, because they have that like strong vision in place and what they want to achieve, and they're leading from the front and like doing things as well. Now there's a balance for sure.
A lot of fitness business owners will have the mentality of like Apple or Tesla, where it's public knowledge that they don't pay to advertise, and they feel that they shouldn't have to do any marketing activity, and their ideal clients are going to self-generate, self-refer and come through the door. You could have had that sort of same mentality. Why didn't you? And why is it important to market?
Yeah, I think like, well, when you look at Apple, that's where Apple is probably today after like how many years essentially. And they're definitely doing some marketing activity back in the day in order to kind of get to where they are today. I think it's also like, if you, again, they're playing to their strengths, right? So, you know, Steve Jobs, like Elon Musk, like they're powerful figures, they're powerful brands. They've, you know, been at different companies. They've created this whole aura that, you know, it's very, very few people do. And like if you've worked on the brand and that kind of stuff, like it's one way for sure. I'm not saying it's the wrong way, but I think you can't be dependent on that either to be like a sustainable business. I think like you have to experiment and you have to test and figure out what works, what doesn't work, and just keep optimizing for things.
So one of the ways that you grew LegitFit was cold calling. A lot of gym owners, online coaches, they will have inbound leads. These are people that have put their hand up, entered their name, email, phone number, said they're interested. So they've got these inbound leads, let's say, 10 a day. And that quickly multiplies. You've got 70 over a week. And the business owner will have negative self-talk about calling those leads. Now, you, on the other hand, were scraping data from Google and cold calling gyms. Completely different, much harder. What would you say to the online coach gym owner that has friction, has negative self-talk about calling inbound leads from your experience of cold calling?
Yeah, I think if you're getting 5 to 10 a day, you're in a really lucky position. And like we give anything for that back then. So I think like always see it as a massive opportunity. Like people are sticking their hands up, as you said. With regards, I think some of the things that we've learned is like the speed to lead, which is what we call it now. So I think it's, if you call them in the first hour versus the first 24 hours, there's a 60% chance that you'll actually close them as a customer. So that's something we've been really trying to like improve, because it's, again, like the first person that they talk to, that they're getting that instant, okay, these people care, they're ringing me straight away. So you have to kind of put yourself in the kind of consumer's mindset as well. I think also with regards, it can be like a difficult thing that a lot of people procrastinate on and say, I will get to that soon, which you're kind of, you're failing on the speed to lead front, but also what that can actually lead you to do is to do other jobs, other tasks slower. So I think what we've done is like we put in like blocks and time blocks where we would, like, it's non-negotiable. We're calling in these blocks. Like if you're a bigger team, is there a couple of you that can cold call at the same time and get a good energy around it, and kind of like be accountable to each other for that kind of stuff. And I think like, yeah, if you're not getting to them straight away, if you can do it in, like first thing in the morning, I think swallow the frog is the phrase that someone told me before, like get that done, then focus on some of the other operational things. But yeah, like have to be calling, have to be like, at the end of the day, you're not selling, you're helping. You should really, like, that person is waiting for you to call them. They want help. They've stuck their hand up.
And you've not said this, but I definitely sort of pick up the energy from you on this, is that you created something that you knew could change someone's life for the better. So you did everything capable to go and spread the message of LegitFit. Yeah,
exactly. Because like I knew from my experience that we've helped certain people before and we've seen the results from that perspective. So, you know, and it's the same in fitness. It's like you're in this game because you love working with people, you love helping people, you have helped people. So it's the same kind of mentality of like, you know, you're good at what you do. So just make sure you kind of get in touch with as many of those people that you can help, because at the end of the day, I know it's a tough thing, but like you got to think about the satisfaction and the reason that you're there, you know.
I think make it less about you and make it about them. And then that's how you break through the mindset shift of calling leads. Yeah. If you make it about them, I'm going to change their life. I'm going to call these 10 people that came in the last, 8 hours, and I'm going to change their lives for the better. When you have that mentality, you attack it. Yeah. And it's not about you.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with like people not answering or failing or saying no. Like, get comfortable with the no's. You're not going to be a fit for everybody. They're not going to be a fit for you. Like, and again, it's just like one no closer to a yes,
Let's talk leadership, team, operations. What is the size of the team right now?
Current team size is 25. We've 3 open roles as well. So we'll probably be at around 30 by the end of the year.
Can you give some quick fire leadership tips to the audience?
Yeah, so I think it's been an iterative process, like learning how to lead and what to do, what not to do. I think one of the biggest kind of thing I think was, which was kind of hard from my family background, was around the micromanaging piece, because often we had that kind of element in the household and that kind of stuff. But
so you saw that behavior from the family business, micromanaging?
It was not so much about the family business, but even like my sister saying, do this, do that, all that kind of stuff. And I think like that's definitely necessary in one sense to a certain point. But what we're trying to do in our business is that like we don't have, and it's like probably the biggest lesson I learned in the last couple of years was like, don't hire like followers, hire like builders. So like followers, someone who will come to you with a problem and ask you, what do I do, right? A builder is like someone who will come to you with a problem, say the 3 things that they think is the solution and the one best one, and sometimes they might even get to a point where they're actually just doing it. And I think that was really important from a hiring perspective when we look at who we wanted in the company.
How do you identify that person in an interview, or are you coaching them on, hey, this is how we work at LegitFit? You're not a follower. You don't come to me with problems. You come to me with solutions. So is it a mixture of you coaching the team, or are these naturally you're finding them in the CVs you're reading, in the conversations, in the face-to-face interviews?
Yeah, I think you find a lot out in the interview process. And we've changed, like you can change the way you do the application process and keep iterating on how to find these things out. So like one thing we've done now is like we might give someone some data and say, hey, look, this is what we're going to be talking about in the next call. And it's really interesting to find out, will they work with the data? Will they build out something? And some of them do a presentation and everything for us. And it's like, they first of all, they really want this job, which is great. But second of all, you can kind of almost get a sense of how they work. And that type of character, I think we try to style our interview questions as well to understand like which personality type are they. And then I think it's kind of part of the process. I think you kind of have to, during the initial phases, right? It's a new role. You do have to like manage a bit, but then there's a point where you need to relinquish more and more and be comfortable as well with letting them fail at things and just doing retrospectives with them. So, you know, I'm happy for any of the team like to fail. Like that's a big like cultural part, that like fail fast or fail forward. And then because you learn a lot more from the failures than you do the wins. But it's just making sure that you kind of embrace that, not not get angry at those kind of things, but say, okay, what do we learn here? How could we do better next time? What would you change? And that they get into that kind of that mindset about like, look, failing is okay. And then they will try more things on their own as well, because they're comfortable with that. But I think that's a big thing.
How many people have you interviewed? How many people have you had to let go because they didn't succeed initially in the probational period? How many people have you had to fire?
Yeah, so we've interviewed thousands. Haven't made it past probation period is probably one. That was more of a contractor situation, but one. And then fired 5 like that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the sort of hard conversations you've had to have with staff that are just not performing and you need to get them out of the business, or they started off really well, but their performance dipped or they did something wrong? One thing that every business owner, entrepreneur has to have in their career is hard conversations with team members. So just some tips and learnings around that.
So I think there's a really good book. It's called Crucial Conversations. Definitely worth a read. It's about not just like crucial business conversations, but all of life conversations. And yeah, I think like, the first thing that I kind of tend to look at is myself, in the sense of, okay, if this person isn't performing, am I doing my job to ensure that they are performing? Then if they're not, it's a case of like, again, I suppose sitting down with them, trying to understand, like, is there anything kind of going on outside of work, inside of work, like how are they feeling, and just being like candid with them. I think there's not enough candor, and I think it's just like, again, almost like understanding what their vision is in this role, where they're at, how you're going to kind of get to that point, and kind of setting a plan in place and trying to kind of help as much as possible. Now, once you've done that and you've gone through a process, I think then obviously the other conversation comes up, and they're definitely like they're super difficult. But I think if like you've done everything in your power and it's not kind of quite working out for them, like at the end of the day, we've certain metrics in place where it's like black or white. And I think then it's a case of like, you just need to, again, be candid, have that honest discussion with them, and kind of say things aren't working out. And there's conversations can go one way or another. For some people, it can be a relief that they were actually maybe afraid to leave you or leave that, or And then for some people, it's a more difficult conversation.
How often are you checking in with the team, cadence of meetings, what sort of the KPIs, what do you do for culture, community?
So team meetings, again, it's been a kind of a evolving thing. So we used to have everybody on the morning stand up. That's when we were at maybe 5 or 6 people. So we'd meet in the morning and we'd chat about what's on for the day. Then we would have like a weekly all hands, which was the kind of the metrics from each department. So what revenue did sales close? From a marketing perspective, was more about building audience and that kind of stuff at that stage. From an engineering, it was product updates. But as we've kind of grown the size, we've had to obviously look at the time being spent in meetings, and there's no point of having meetings about meetings, essentially. And I think when we realize, there's like, think about there's 40 hours a week, 20 hours a week lost on this one meeting, or 20 hours, we just had to kind of change things and adapt. So we've now kind of separated into teams. So they meet, it depends on the team, but engineering has a daily stand-up, sales has 2 major weekly meetings, and then one-to-ones. Like my team is like the leadership team. So we have one-to-ones once a week, and then we have a group meeting then on a Wednesday. And it depends on the time of month, but every week we have certain metrics that each team lead talks through. What's going well, what they're finding challenging. And then we review kind of more like deeper SaaS metrics once a month, which are like our 20 core metrics that would just take up too much time to do weekly, basically.
And then culture.
Culture, yeah.
You recently went away. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we're a fully remote company. So we don't have actually any office space. We have people working in co-working spaces. So we don't get to kind of have those water cooler moments or those kind of conversations around life and that kind of stuff. So we've tried to bring in certain tools that would help with that. So we have like a random coffee meeting generator, which would be a virtual meeting that you have with someone random in the team. That's once per week. So you're going to meet someone from maybe a different department in your department and just chat anything non-LegitFit related. And then we've because the hackathon's not just got the product to market, but they become a bit of a cultural thing and a really kind of nice opportunity for us to get to know each other. We have done that continuously. In I think 2022 we did. Each team went to a different country. So some were in Portugal, some were in Greece. I brought the marketing team to Manchester, which they didn't like. No offense to Manchester, but
not as glamorous.
Yeah, exactly. It worked for me though. So more recently, there's some team members that have never met each other in person. I haven't seen some of them in person for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And we basically just decided to continue that, to kind of keep the culture where it already is and build it even further. So we went to Malaga for 4 days and did like the Hyrox event on the Friday. We did event workshops around AI on the kind of Friday afternoon. Did a yoga Saturday morning. Did more workshops Saturday, and then kind of had some free time and chill time, and just brought in different kind of things like putting me in context, which is, I think I'd recommend any company to do. It's basically each team member prepares 3 slides on their past and what's brought them here today, their current priorities and their future aspirations. And I think that's even if you're not remote, that's something really good to do, so that you really understand the person deeply from each stage of their own journey.
That must have cost a significant amount of money to take the whole 26 people to Malaga. I guess you paid for accommodation, food, activities. What's the ROI on that? And then what would be the learnings to our audience in terms of doing something similar maybe, or building that culture and that team element?
Um, the ROI is again, it's slightly intangible, but like we see like productivity in the months after the hackathon goes way up. People are chatting on the Slack channels more. They're more open with each other. There's more collaboration happens. So it's hard to quantify that. I think the only thing I could maybe quantify it is you asked a question earlier about like how many we've interviewed, how many we've fired, all that kind of stuff. An interesting stat: how many people have left us is 0. So I think that's what I would see as the ROI, is that this contributes massively to our culture, and people are really bought into the vision, the story that we have, and they really want to be like part of that journey and contribute to that journey, which is like surreal given where we've come from essentially.
So a lot of the listeners do have a team. Would you recommend that they go away and do something similar?
Yeah, like that, and like, look, maybe it doesn't have to be 3 villas in Marbella. Like, we started on a very small scale, and we were even getting the ROI from that, right? Like, I think it cost us €300 for the Airbnb and €300 for food and drink, and like, it's just it's a time to get out of like the day-to-day operations to focus on like the big picture collectively. And I think like having each person's influence is only going to be good for your business plus their role in your business. I think you'll learn a huge amount about them, but you'll learn a huge amount and be able to action items from that that will again only make the business better.
Let's talk about some data and stats that you see working with the thousands upon thousands of clients that you have that use the software. What do you see going on in the industry right now? What's some tangible takeaways that the audience can learn from you and the data and then implement into their business? Can you give some case studies of some of your clients and some tweaks and changes that they made thanks to your advice and LegitFit software, and what the outcome of that was?
Yeah, so it depends on like the business that we're talking about, what their challenge is, and you see, you riff off like the stats around like we've had businesses increase their revenue by 500%, but maybe that was a challenge than before. We had attendance increase by 240% for a different business, and like we kind of see that those kind of metrics across the database, and it's just really part of our onboarding process is to understand like the current status and where they want to be, and then kind of work towards that. So like we've seen amazing results, and like people go from one location. We had 26 businesses last year. Was it 26 that went to second locations? Which again, it's not all us, but we're definitely part of that story for them and helping them kind of grow revenue. I think more recently, I even took the time to catch up with a customer who was struggling with one aspect. Email just came into my inbox, and I was like, I'm going to hop on this call, just learn a bit more, again, be curious, and made 2 or 3 tweaks to the way she was using the product, and her attendance like skyrocketed. Her revenue in 6 weeks increased by 20%. So yeah, I think like we obviously get to see and understand a lot about what the best are doing in the sense of sense of the industry, and I think that's something that we're really when it goes into like the AI field, and of course like there's something interesting that can be done there where it just helps businesses grow even further.
One of the biggest challenges gym owners face if they run a class-based model where people book on is people will book in advance, and then for whatever reason life gets in the way, they no-show and they take up a one slot in a class that's normally at capacity. What are sort of the systems that you have in place, and what would you advise?
Yeah, I think like one of the things that we've learned is like unlimited memberships have a place firstly, unless you like you've some limitations in capacity. Then we kind of consider when we're doing onboarding, we kind of query, is unlimited maybe like the days you're open per month, is it 21 sessions? Because you often get people who will just book everything. So
and 2 sessions a day.
Yeah. And then say, oh, I'm actually tired after that session, I won't go to the other one. So like, just kind of, we do that during customer onboarding, just to kind of like, again, see, is that the best method? Then we've looked at things like with competitors, we've seen things like cascading waiting lists, which are like, if someone doesn't get in if someone drops out, basically it would go to the first person, send them an email and say, do you want the book? Do you want this class before we pass on to the next? And it would keep doing that cascade. So by the time the actual person, they could be the 10th person on the list. That's an hour, 2 hours. It might be too late. I remember there was one customer who it came from the biggest competitor, and they were like really dead certain on it should be that way because they're used to that way. But we saw it slightly differently. And I think 6 weeks after, he was like, I get it. Because it's going instantly out to everybody and it's first come, first serve.
Just to repeat, let's say like Saturday morning's quite busy class. If you run a class-based gym model, coach gym, and let's say you've got 15 spaces available, all 15 are blocked out, you might have 7 people on a wait list. And are they told what position they are on the wait list?
No.
So I join the wait list, and then someone drops out, say Friday at 9 o'clock at night. An email is then sent out to the 7 on the wait list, and it's the first person that clicks and books on gets it. Is that the case?
Exactly.
So why is that better than like person number 1 on the wait list gets it, or they have to like auto book themselves, or
Yeah, because I think it comes down to like the way we break down like feature requests or these different things is like jobs to be done, right? So instead of like what's the feature, is like what's the job to be done here. And with a wait list, it's like the job to be done is I want to make sure those classes are as full as possible. So when you look at a cascading wait list, you're kind of delaying what you want to actually happen. Whereas with the kind of first come, first serve, it's like more instantaneously, like, and essentially at the end of the day, you want that class full because the revenue side of things, and that's important to the business. So that's kind of the way.
Because potentially if someone drops out Friday 9 o'clock and the class is at 7 o'clock Saturday morning, and then person number 1 on the wait list has gone to bed or is out for the evening, and they don't check their phone until 7:15, then they've missed the slot because they were sleeping, and those other 6 people have not been able to book on, and you've got 14 people in your class instead of 15.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is the best way to do it is it then auto.
It's basically just the first come, first serve method, because like, and again, it could be like people's lives are busy. They're not waiting for your class as well. So like if they can't get into a certain class, they might be organizing something else, right? And let's say they're first on the waiting list and now they're going to the cinema or they're doing something else, right? You're just delaying what you actually want to happen. And I think like, yeah, it's like if the goal is to fill the classes, just go with the opportunity that makes that like most possible.
Which it should be. It should be to make the business as busy and as profitable as possible. But some gym owners will be like, oh, Mary doesn't like it that way because we used to do it this way previously. Yeah. But it's like, okay, well.
Yeah. And it's like, look, it's a, at the end of the day, like these minute things, they might seem small and it's one client, but once they adjust to the kind of other method and it actually makes it more financially sound for you to do that, it's not going to be something you'll regret. Like,
let's do some quick fire questions on LegitFit, the product. So I'm a gym owner. I don't have any software. I guess the answer is get software because it will save me a bunch of time.
Yeah. It'll just make your life so much easier. You don't need to be doing these manual tasks. You don't need to be going back and forth with people. Like I know some people who don't use software, sometimes they say, oh, I don't want to lose that personal touch. What we're actually trying to do is deliver you more time to give more of a personal touch if that is your goal. So, allowing clients to reschedule if they need to so that you can
like they might manually WhatsApp clients like, hey, there's a slot available for the session tomorrow if you want to join, and or send out a broadcast WhatsApp to all of their clients.
Yeah. Or even like Mary messages you saying, I can't make tomorrow. It's like, okay, what day do you want to make? And then it's going back and forth to find the time.
Sunday night at 8 p.m. when you're trying to chill and just be with the family, and you're dealing with like
Yeah. And
booking someone into a class. Like that's not entrepreneurship. Like there
Yeah.
is a better way.
Yeah.
Like use technology.
Yeah. Yeah. And even again, like I talked about the data from a, you know, the sales and marketing standpoint, but even from a retention standpoint, like you don't need to build these massive Google Sheets. You don't need to do that kind of stuff. Like you can get such good insights and know a lot about the business, and just understand it and the different levers and stuff like that. So yeah, of course I have to say that I'm somewhat biased, but I genuinely believe it makes a massive, massive difference to people.
Well, it's 2025. Like you shouldn't be doing things manually.
Yeah.
Like, and just because that client has done it that way all the time and they're used to it, like you just have a hard conversation. Like, hey, I'm switching things around.
And it's again, it's putting it in the perspective of like why you're switching. Maybe it's communicating with the clients. I'm switching it around because I want to put on more sessions that you will enjoy, or because I want to give you more time on a different front that isn't so operational or the nitty gritty pieces.
The highest performers in FMA profit wise, they're not texting their clients. Their clients are not texting them, asking them to switch sessions or can I cancel or anything like that. There's processes, there's systems, there's technology. What do you say to the fitness business owner that says, I'm no good with tech. I don't understand tech. I don't like tech. I'm a technophobe. And that's one of the reasons why I don't want to transfer to LegitFit, or I don't want to have software in my business.
Yeah, I think so. Like we've taken this, I think we've learned from the market that a lot of people don't like tech in the market, right? And that's why we've made sure that the kind of interface and how you do things is a lot more natural. Like we didn't copy the competitors in the sense what they did from a feature perspective. We looked at like, you know, what does Instagram look like? How do you move things on Google Calendar? How do you do these things that are more natural and comfortable to the technophobes? I think again, it's probably about being like just testing it, being comfortable or uncomfortable, and just if you want to kind of, if your ambition is to get to a certain level, like once you go past a certain client marker, like doing that is actually only going to be negative towards your business and the service that you're delivering. And by bringing in different things like the LegitFit, closer system, all these different things, that they're only going to enhance the service, and just go from like kind of, you know, the PT with 20 clients to like a operational sustainable business that's like, you know, really killing it.
What would you say to the gym owner that would say, yeah, like I like the look of what you do, like some of the features look awesome, I don't have those, definitely want them, but I'm 5 years, 8 years, 10 years ingrained in XYZ system, and one, I don't have the time to learn a new system, two, I'm scared it's going to disrupt my legacy clients and I'll lose a bunch of revenue. It just seems too much hard work switching to a more innovative platform, company, brand, LegitFit.
Yeah, so I think that was a problem maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but with like Stripe and what we've learned, it's so much easier to migrate people. So like again, there's no downtime on payments. There we do the transfer of the data. Like we do a lot of hand holding at the very start, because we want you to be as successful with the platform as possible, and we get to again use this as an opportunity to learn more, because I think that's why we stay ahead of the rest. Is like we go to all these events. We still do door knocking, believe it or not. It's like when we go to an event, we might throw something in the Facebook group, or we might like target some gyms that are around and just get out, because we want to keep our pulse on the industry. But yeah,
which a lot of tech SaaS platforms in this industry, they hide behind their laptops. They don't go out and meet the customer. They don't go to trade events. They don't speak from stage. They're like, not interested, right?
Yeah, and like they might go to a trade event and have a massive booth, but they're only interested in selling the software. And like, I think like what we want to kind of, and again, it comes back to like the company culture, that what we're trying to do is like, we just really want, everyone we bring in loves this industry. They love fitness. They really have a passion for these customers. Like, I know someone who went on maternity leave last year. She was so sad to be leaving some of the customers while she was doing that and handing them over to someone else in the team. So it's like, I think we're a lot different than a lot of other companies that are just like, you're a number essentially.
So in short, if I'm with a different provider, I'm ingrained in their system. You're telling me very easily you can switch me over, and my customers won't even know the difference.
Yeah, so like the customers will just have to install a new app and all their data will be there. Their membership data, their credits, all that kind of stuff.
Can I get that app branded?
Yeah, you can. It's our hottest seller at the moment for sure.
What would you say to the entrepreneur, fitness business owner that looks at what you have to offer and then thinks another company does the same and they do it for cheaper? Why is the cheapest not always the best?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like, well, one element is the service side of things, but like the other is like, do they really understand and care about the problem? So like what we're trying to kind of do more so now is like really deeply understand like the current problems and where we can kind of help and what that implication from a revenue perspective is. And then we work at solving those problems. Whereas, you can sign up to a Calendly or Acuity or somebody, right? That's going to be cheaper. And it's like, are you going to kind of, is this going to be a company that's really going to look after the business? Is this a company that's going to understand the challenges and actually solve them, as opposed to, here it's just another software, upload your details, off you go.
And create bigger problems down the line. So it might seem easier to start with or cheaper to start with.
Yeah.
But there's no innovation because things in tech change all the time.
Yeah. It's so fast. Yeah. So I think like you need to make sure that you're partnering up with the company who like not just understands you, but is like looking forward at what's next in the market and is also like open enough with their customer base to let them steer you in the right direction.
At the start of the podcast, you talked about the Irish market, the English market, but what other countries are you working with?
Yeah, so we're in like 20 plus countries now. Like the main foothold is Ireland and the UK. I think we're across like Croatia, Serbia, Spain, US. I think over the next like 18 months, we want to kind of put more of a focus on some of the English speaking markets. And again, I think learn from the marketing data as well on where we should be kind of moving into next.
And what business models are with you? What, if you could just break them down?
Yeah, so we've SGPT, large group training, Pilates, yoga. They be kind of the core ones. Then we have like some open gym businesses and that kind of stuff. But I think the SGPT and Pilates in the last probably 6 months, and maybe that's a sign of the market as well, have been the kind of the customers that are signing up the most.
You guys at LegitFit are innovating, you're disrupting the industry, you're making massive waves, great impact. There's a bunch of people listening to this podcast that are currently your clients. There's a bunch that are definitely not, maybe the first time they've heard of you as a business and you as an individual, but they're interested. Where can they find out more?
So legitfit.com is the website, legitfit.com. There's a lot of like customer stories there, but I would definitely suggest for anybody who's interested to book some time with the team so that we can hear how things are going for you, see if there's any challenges that we can help solve. We're also on socials as legitfit.com.
When I book to speak to your team, is it a demo, their share screen?
Yeah, so we do discovery. So what we try to kind of spend as much time doing is like learning from you and understanding what are the challenges that you're actually here for today. And we don't want to kind of just like show you a product and off you go. We genuinely want to kind of solve the problems that you have. And then we do go into the specific features and functionality that will help with those problems.
And is there any special offer to listeners? Got
to look after the FMA crew. So yeah, they can when they're booking the demo, essentially put in FMA Podcast 50, and that'll give them 50% off their first 3 months.
Awesome. It's been great to get to know you better and your story, and many people will take inspiration from the risk and how you scaled the company and the impact that you had in the industry. And it's been awesome to find out more about LegitFit as well. So thank you, Ryan, for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.